Face ups and downs on this journey, so you have to be ready for whatever's coming for you. So I want to prepare you guys with something really important today, really important tip. Assalamu alaikum. When you're dieting, you're going to have some days where your weight is randomly up and some days where your weight is randomly down. And most people make the huge mistake of freaking out when this happens, getting discouraged, psychologically sabotaging themselves, and completely ruining their momentum, their progress, their motivation, and making it way harder for them to stick to the diet, way more stressful, everything. And so I want to share an example for myself, which is that 2 days ago I had like a cheat meal that was way off the diet, and you guys probably saw on my story, but I weighed in lighter the next day versus yesterday. I had 20K steps, ate perfectly, and I weighed in heavier this morning. Now, I thought about it because for me, I know how to handle these things because I've been through this so many times. I've taken so many clients through this, but a lot of people, their first time dieting, even their 10th time dieting, or maybe diets used to work for you way easier when you were younger, but now that you're in your 30s or your 40s, your body just doesn't work the same, and now you're freaking out, and it's extremely frustrating for you that you get bloated so easily that your weight randomly goes up. Well, here's the thing. So my weight is 3 pounds heavier today than it was yesterday. Does it mean I gained 3 pounds of fat? Well, first off, that's physiologically impossible. I ate 2,400 calories yesterday, and I burned at least 3,300 calories yesterday. And I always overestimate how much I eat and underestimate how much I burn to ensure that the deficit is always bigger than I actually think it is, as opposed to the other way around where I underestimate how much I eat, which is what was happening before I started tracking my macros, and kind of naturally happens when people don't track properly, unless you have a solid meal plan. But the point is, so it's physiologically impossible. But even if I had eaten in a surplus yesterday, let's say I ate 5,000 calories yesterday, right? That would still be physiologically impossible for me to gain 3 pounds of fat. So literally it has to be water. And I know that for many people, their weight is a very emotional thing for them. And when it's an emotional thing, it's hard for a person to think logically about it. And I would say that my weight is an emotional thing too. Like if I look in the mirror and I'm fat, I mean, I've had many months that I was fat, maybe even years if you add up all the months. I mean, the longest I ever let myself be fat for one period of time was probably about a year. So I can't say years, but you know, you added up all the points in my life where I got fat, and I definitely have been fat for years of my life. And yeah, it's extremely emotional versus when you look in the mirror and you're shredded, you emotionally feel great. So I know that weight is a very emotional thing for men and women, you know. There's nothing wrong with being a man who loves to look good, and obviously women, you know, it's more natural for women to be even more emotional about this. But just because it's an emotional thing doesn't mean that you can't think logically about it. It just means it's a little bit harder to think logically about it. But that's the purpose of this video, is I want to teach you guys this really important tip and how I handle it. And you know, the mental state I have when I step on the scale this morning, and it's 3 pounds heavier than I expected, right? Like I was telling you guys yesterday, I was like, hey, you know, it was lighter than I expected today, so I'm going to motivate myself with that. But if it's heavier than I expected, I'm also going to motivate myself with that. This is called the win-win psychology, right? Too many people have a lose-lose psychology. The people who have a lose-lose psychology, if they step on the scale and it's lighter, they say, oh, it's probably just water weight. If they step on the scale and it's heavier, they say, oh, it's fat, right? But people who have a win-win psychology, if they step on the scale and it's lighter, they say, wow, I'm ahead on my fat loss. And if they step on the scale and gain weight, then they say, oh, it's just water weight, right? So that's the win-win psychology. But in order to earn the right to have the win-win psychology, you have to do the work. You can't eat 5,000 calories and then just say it's water weight when you're actually gaining fat. Not that that 3 pounds would have been fat, but the point is, you know, there's a lot of people who are delusional in the wrong way. They have the win-win psychology without having earned it. And the only way that you can earn that win-win psychology is doing the work. So if you're doing the work, don't have a lose-lose psychology. Unfortunately, a lot of people who put in the work are very critical on themselves and have a lose-lose psychology. They never give themselves credit for their successes. And I think it comes down to childhood, because some of us had like really strict parents who, like, if you got a 97%, they'd be like, oh, but what about the 3% that you missed? They were always focused on the negative. And I'm not saying that my parents were that way or that they weren't that way, but I think many of us with Muslim parents can relate with that, right? So unfortunately, and don't repeat the cycle with your kids, but having that never satisfied mindset, you know, our parents thought that it would push us to do better because obviously they were kind of forced to just have the craziest, highest standards. But unfortunately, a lot of these people, in the name of these high standards, they had a very toxic way of bringing up their kids. And so now many people live with the consequences of that they're never satisfied with themselves, right? There's a balance. You know, if you never set boundaries with your kid, then your kid's going to grow up to be the one who's like, oh yeah, I hurt that person, but it's okay. That it was their fault that I hurt them, right? And likewise, if you raise your kids too strict, then they could achieve the greatest things and never still give themselves credit, never still love themselves. So you have to teach self-love with boundaries to your kids. And if you were never taught that as a kid, then you have to teach it to yourself. And I definitely have to teach that to myself to a degree because, you know, I never really learned to give myself credit for my accomplishments, at least at the level that I needed to. But then it's funny because I took it the other way and I became too arrogant at one point in my 20s And then Allah humbled me and taught me how to, have the balance. So alhamdulillah for the extremes I've been on both sides, but taking it back to the whole thing about weight loss. So, what actually causes, fluctuations in water? Why do people fluctuate 3 to 5 pounds in weight every single week? And the graph doesn't just look perfectly like this in weight loss, it looks like this. It's up and down, but it trends downwards if you're on a good weight loss journey. Well, again, there's a lot of things that could cause water retention. Stress causes water retention. Stress-related water retention. That's why sometimes you train super hard and diet perfectly, yet the next day you wake up heavier. It's not because you gained fat despite being in a deficit. That's physiologically impossible. What actually happened is that you put more stress on your body. So I did 20K steps yesterday. That's a lot of stress on the body. And alhamdulillah, I don't feel it. I actually felt great. And alhamdulillah, I slept pretty good last night. So I know the stress isn't too bad, but that could be a potential root cause. Maybe there is some stress-related water retention, okay? And it's funny, sometimes I'll have clients, they're doing all the work, the weight doesn't move, then out of nowhere one day, they just drop 3 pounds, boom. And that'll happen like every single week. Like every week, they won't lose any weight during the week, everything stays exactly the same, then one day randomly it drops 2 to 3 pounds. It's not that they lost 2 to 3 pounds of fat in a single day, they lost 2 to 3 pounds of fat in that whole week. But the water weight was kind of maintaining their scale weight until the water weight finally dropped at the end of the week or at whatever day of the week it happened, and then finally they saw the result on the scale. So this is how this stuff works. And that's why sometimes after a cheat meal, you lose weight, even though you ate so much sodium and carbs and stuff that made you bloated, and you even feel bloated, yet you lost weight. What the heck? Well, the reason is that when you have a cheat meal, you get a giant influx of calories. And the thing is that a calorie deficit itself is slightly stressful for the body, especially if you go too severe. If you're on a severe deficit, it's very stressful for the body. But if you're on a moderate deficit, it's slightly stressful for the body. So even on a sustainable deficit, you're going to get a little bit of stress-related water retention, but especially on a sharp deficit, you're going to get a lot of stress-related water retention. And so, that's another potential cause. And that, kind of goes away on its own sometimes. Sometimes you have to take a pretty comprehensive stress management protocol if you're not somebody who's very good with stress management, if you tend to run high stress and not manage it very well. If you're somebody who does not manage stress well, that's a skill that you need to build, because your life is only going to get more stressful. Not to stress you out further by telling you that, I'm just trying to be real with you. Your life is only going to get more stressful as you level up in your career, your business, your family, you have more kids, whatever it is. As you enter the next phase in life and take on new responsibilities, you are going to get more stressed. So you need to learn how to manage it as soon as you possibly can. And what I want you to do is go to my profile and DM me with the word stress. I have a free 1-hour guide, literally an hour. You can also comment below the replay, because I'm going to post this live as a replay, but it doesn't work on the live video, unfortunately, these auto comments that will send it to you. But after I post the replay, or if you just want to DM me right now with the word stress, I have a 6-part guide, 1 hour long, crazy comprehensive on how to manage your stress, because I don't want any of you to be struggling with this any longer. Okay, there's some loud leaf blowers over there or whatever they're doing for the plant maintenance, so I'm going to walk this way so I don't mess up the sound. Anyways, so water retention happens. Now, what else could cause water retention? Consuming more sodium. So to be honest, I ate a lot of sodium yesterday. I actually do eat a lot of sodium every day, but I think I might have done a little bit more yesterday. Another potential root cause, and I'm not saying it's one of these things, it could be all of these things, but it could be one of these things. Another thing yesterday was I was planning on training at 11 a.m., but a lot of emergencies came up in the business yesterday. And as well as family, there was some unexpected family stuff I had to handle too. So instead of working out at 11 a.m., I actually worked out at like 6 p.m. or whatever time I worked out. I finished at like 7 or 8. Actually, I finished around like 7:30ish, but then I got into a conversation at the gym. I stayed until 8. But the point is, so because of that, I took creatine in the evening. Because remember, I was telling you guys that I didn't take creatine for 11 years. Then in my 30s, recovery just hasn't been the same as what it used to be. So I started taking creatine and it like totally changed the game for me, which is crazy. So I guess I was creatine deficient, I suppose, even though I eat a lot of beef. But yeah, so that could have also increased the bloating, because I've been microdosing creatine. Because the reason I stopped taking creatine 11 years ago was that I was losing my hair. Now it's funny because there's conflicting research. There's very little definitive research that creatine might cause hair loss, but there's tons of anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of people who have reported losing hair on creatine. So I'm microdosing it, but I took 2 microdoses yesterday. So that could definitely increase water retention as well. So here's the thing, whether you can pin it down to a reason or not, fluctuations in water happen. Stress-related water retention happens. If you have nothing else to blame it on the stress. But you can't freak out every time that your weight fluctuates up or down. You can't let that demotivate you. It's easy for it to demotivate you, so don't be mad if in the past it's demotivated you. That's totally normal. But what I'm telling you is moving forward, I want you to start working on that. Moving forward, I want you to identify every time that demotivates you, if your weight is fluctuating, or anytime that you're having a lose-lose psychology, even though you earn the right to have a win-win psychology by doing the work, like I talked about earlier in this video. So be conscious of that and start working on it. That's my message with this video, was to share my personal example and relate that to you. Don't be that person who has the lose-lose psychology. You never give yourself credit for the fact that you did the work, and don't be that person who credits yourself for doing the work that you didn't do. Because again, for every person who's eating perfect and training perfect and doesn't give themselves credit for their results, you also have another person who's not doing the work, who's eating 5,000 calories a day, being lazy, and saying that their weight gain is just muscle, even though they're getting fat. So you have people who are delusional in a way that saves them from doing the work, and you have people who are delusional in a way that doesn't allow themselves to give themselves credit for their results. You don't want to be either of those things. You want to be the person who does the work and then gives yourself credit for the work. But even more important than that, so understand this, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who set up all this stuff, right? So like Allah set up the laws of physics. Allah gave you the ability to your life, your ability to wake up every day, the knowledge that you have, your ability to execute on it, and then the results that you got. So of course, you always have to give credit to Allah. But also, there are numerous verses in the Quran about, like for instance, Surah Al-Kahf, let he who wills believe and let he who wills disbelieve, right? So of course, Allah has given us some free will too. I'm just doing like the qadr disclaimer, because I don't want anybody to go around saying, I'm the best, most arrogant, I saw success, I'm the pharaoh. No. I don't want any of you guys to be like that just because you got some results in your fitness. What I'm saying is, thank Allah that he gave you the knowledge that you were able to execute on to get the fitness results. Thank Allah that he, gave you your health and your life and everything, because Allah was the one who made all this possible for you. And then after that, thank Allah that he gave you the ability to put in the work and get the results. That's what I mean. I don't mean be arrogant by giving yourself credit for the results. But if you ate in a calorie deficit for 12 weeks and you lost 20 pounds, you lost 20 pounds because you got into a calorie deficit, okay? Which is great. So give yourself credit for that, but then give Allah credit for the fact that Allah gave you the ability to even take action on that and do the right strategy and everything else and the health and everything to do it. That's how you give yourself credit without being arrogant, and actually use it as a means to be more grateful to Allah, right? So if that makes sense, right? Like if a couple has a baby, yes, that baby is a risk from Allah, but that couple obviously had to have intercourse for the baby to be conceived, right? So likewise, if you lose weight, that weight loss is a gift from Allah, but you did have to eat in a calorie deficit and train to get that result. If you go make $1 million, yes, that's a gift from Allah, it's a risk from Allah, but you have to go create a valuable product or service, market and sell it properly, and then deliver on it to retain your customers properly and get good word of mouth and spread that product. Or that's in the context of business, in the context of, career, you had to develop a valuable skill set, interview at companies, negotiate a good rate, advance through the ranks, keep leveling up your skills, be competitive in the job market. You had to take those actions, even though that money is a gift from Allah. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, give yourself credit for doing the work without being arrogant, if that makes sense. But don't be this really dumb person who eats 5,000 calories and is delusional about the fact that they're getting fat. And don't be the person who's eating in a calorie deficit, doing a great job, getting good results, has a couple fluctuations here and there, but then has a lose-lose psychology towards the fluctuations where, if they lose weight, they think it's just water weight, and if they gain weight, they think it's fat. Even though the reality is, if they lose weight, a lot of times it is body fat, especially if you're losing it consistently week after week and you're not hitting a plateau, and you're not necessarily, I could go into my whole anti-keto thing right now, but we'll do that in other videos. I've already done plenty of anti-keto videos. And that is a topic for another day. I would love to go on that topic right now, but you don't want to make a video about 10 million different topics. I'll do some more content on that, but I'm going to wrap this up and finish my walk. But I hope that this was a great, valuable reminder for you, and we went on some nice tangents. So enjoy, share with a friend if you benefited, and make sure to comment below the replay of this with the word stress to get my free stress management guide, which is going to help a lot with this, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.